What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel and check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on some things that Isaiah talked about as far as like the NBA and the guards like the small guards in the NBA, and are they really being phased out, or is there a role for the small guard in the NBA? And for a while, I have been saying personally, I think that positionless basketball, like the way it has been played lately, is fading out because in my opinion, it just ruined or it brought down the level of play in basketball. You know, and that's why I don't think that the point guard position is going anywhere. So you got five different positions on a basketball team, right? And each position has a role. And each position, if the player who's playing that position know how to maximize that position and to be effective at that position, those players are the ones who make their teams better. So, the point guard is not going anywhere, and I like what Isaiah said. Isaiah, like I said, what he said about about the point guard. Isiah Thomas played in the golden era of basketball, which I think when Isiah Thomas, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird was in the league, like in my opinion, that was basketball like at its peak. Like that, in my opinion, that was the golden era of basketball. Then Michael Jordan came in, like in my opinion, like he came in and he took it to a whole nother level. And then after a while, when they started the expansion and stuff like that, I think basketball kind of like it fell off. But when Isaiah, Magic, and Bird was in the league, that was, in my opinion, that was the golden era of basketball. That's like when you were seeing the best basketball being played, you know, in the 80s and then into the 90s and stuff like that. So, but let me play what Isaiah said about the point guard position and how it is different today than it was back, when Isaiah played.
I got to ask you about the small guards. Like, what when you watch this game and you're watching every night and you're talking about it, where do you see the future, or do you see a future for the small guard in this league?
There's definitely a future for the small guard because if you know how to play, it doesn't matter really what size you are. We this is a league where we've had everyone from a Muggsy Bogues to be successful to a Magic Johnson at 6'9" to be successful. And it's not about, the size of the player. It's really about, do you understand how to play the game? And the way we look at the game of basketball today, we break it down numerically, where we only talk about the stats. But then there's another part of the game where we talk about systems and schemes and a knowledge level that gives everyone a chance to play. And it gave me a chance to play. And not only did it give me a chance to play, but it gave me a chance to elevate. So I don't necessarily look at size. I look at, can you really play and do you understand the game? Now, the way the game is communicated to the fans, it's only communicated numerically. But there's language that comes with the game. There's schemes, there's systems,
All right, so he said the way it's communicated to the fans, right? But fans know the game of basketball. That's why in today's game, like that's why people are not watching it as like they used to watch it back in the day. Like attendance has fell off, viewership has fell off. So fans understand the game and they know, the difference between basketball, like skilled basketball players, and the difference between like guys who just running up and down the court dunking the basketball, or guys who just pulling up for threes. They know the difference between strategy and just ripping and running. So that's why fans, like I said, they're not paying attention with their money, and they're not really paying attention as far as like giving the game any watching the game. So and it's evident. Right. So, but I agree with everything else he said. Like, as far as skills, if you are a guy who is short, you use that to your advantage. Like Muggsy Bogues used to press people all over the court. Muggsy at 5'3" he could just disrupt everybody's disrupt your offense. You know, you had to really be careful. And he got plenty of steals because he used his 5'3" stature to his advantage. And fans love that, right? That's only smart basketball. Then when you have a guy who is 7 feet tall, and where he going to play at, he's going to operate around the basket, but because that's his advantage, right? And so, you know, well, this positionless basketball that they got people playing today, where you got guys 7 feet tall shooting jumpers, shoot behind a 3-point. I would love to play against a guy who's 7 feet tall and want to shoot threes, like Joel Embiid. You know, like at 6'1", you know, if you playing somebody, you 6'1" and you playing somebody 7 feet and he want to shoot jumpers, he letting you off the hook. He is letting you off the hook. You know, and so yeah, it's about knowing how to play the game of basketball. So, you know, definitely, and it's getting back to that. It's getting back to that where, you know, with positionless basketball is not fun to watch. It's no strategy, and you know, people just are bored by it.
And then your teammates, that you know, the game has been simplified, you know, for the fan to understand. You know, so we say the game has changed, but I don't think the game has changed. It's become, you know, less complex. It's not as complex as it used to be. So can a little guy now come in and still play and dominate? Absolutely, because the game is now judged from the 3-point line, and this is where the small player has the advantage at the 3-point line. You know, and you know, hey, you sitting there talking to a guy that I really respect a lot, and Boogie Cousins, in terms of his career, and when he was able to, you know, shoot the 3 ball as well as he was shooting it, you know, they were telling the big man you had to play inside. And then when he was like inside, then the game changed. They said, no, we want our big people to play outside. And he's like, well, I can do that too. And so, you know, the game, you know, the simplification of the game, I think favors the smaller player. And I think it really hurts the center position. I think it really hurts the bigger guys right now. So with smaller guys, you know, the way the schemes are ran and the way coaches coach, smaller people will always have the advantage because the 3-point line is like, you know, that's what everybody lives for now.
All right. So like I said, you as an individual ball player, you like Boogie Cousins. Boogie could shoot, but Boogie is a 7-footer with a big body. And you want a guy like that closer to the rim because he's going to shoot a higher percentage, you know, and then he's going to be able to get rebounds, you know. And so the game has been simplified, but that wasn't for the fans. You know, don't blame it on the fans. The game was simplified so they can increase the market, right? Like I said, Americans like here in America, like we understood the game. We watched the game. We got into the strategy of the game. But when you started to bring like foreign players over, right? And the foreign big men, for the most part, not all, but for the most part, foreign big men could not match up with guys like Shaq. They couldn't match up with like the centers, like the American-born big men. They couldn't. So he had to. That's who started shooting all those jumpers. Like Shaq wasn't shooting jumpers like that when he played. Even when you watch Hakeem Olajuwon, I don't think he's American-born, but he played the American style of basketball, right? And you watch Patrick Ewing, they might have shot a mid-range from time to time, you know, but they didn't go out to that 3-point line. You know, they played closer to the basket, no further than probably like about 10 to 15 feet away from the basket, the American guys was, and they was more physical, right? But the European guys are not as physical as the guys who played earlier days in the NBA, and so they changed it, not for the fans, because we was watching the best basketball that was ever being played in the 80s and the 90s and into a little bit into the 2000s. We was watching the best, so we understood what we was watching. Now that we're not getting to see that anymore, people not watching, like they used to.
Now, what about defensively on the other side?
Hold on, we're not rushing through this. Two things. Isaiah, I got to tell you, when you're complimenting Boogie and the turn to Boogie and he's just so stoic, I'm like, can you smile? The man's saying beautiful things. But number two.
Also, Isaiah, I'm right here. Can you say something nice? Can you say something nice about me, Legends?
You just so happen to be sitting next to Boogie.
Just a bad beat for me.
I do have favorites.
That's fair.
I understand.
So do
I
we.
understand. But we've been talking about it all week, Isaiah. Like, what about defensively? When you have a guy like Trae Young who's small, like Blake Griffin said, they're kind of getting phased out, or a Luka, is it the front office's job to add guys around them, or do they just have to play harder and give more effort on the defensive end? How does that work?
Well, when you talk about smaller guys defending, right? You have some that can and you have some that can't, right? And I think the smaller guy will always have the advantage on the perimeter because he should be quicker than the bigger player. And the bigger player who has to put the ball on the ground, you're getting closer to where I'm at. So anytime you put it down there, I'm harassing you. Now, what has happened in the NBA is the smaller player has not been required. Mm-hmm. Key word. He hasn't been required to defend the way he used to defend.
Right.
And if you look at a Davion Mitchell in Miami, and they're making him defend, but he likes to defend. So he's a terror out on the perimeter.
See, that's the difference between, the guards. If you only 6 feet tall and you you got to use your advantage, and so they took that out of it. Like if there was no such thing as a two-way, or as a defensive basketball player. You had to be able to play, maximize whatever your ability was. If you're short, you use that to your advantage. If you're tall, you use that to your advantage. Everybody had to play defense in order to be out there on that court. Everybody. I don't care, if you was a short guy, you better come up with steals. Or if you was a short guy like Muggsy, you better be able to pressure all over the court. And a lot of they got away from that. It's just so lax, like, and so there's definitely room for the point guard. And like I said, basketball is in a cycle. It looked like it's in a cycle to me because they're going back to that 80s and 90s and early 2000s way of playing, whereas though every position has a job and a responsibility to do. And wherever your weakness is, if your guards are not pressing up on the ball and they're not harassing, then there's going to be freedom of movement all over the court. Like guys could dribble and they could do everything that Kyrie Irving do today. And who else is a really good dribbler? Steph Curry is a great ball handler, but you couldn't do that back in the day because guys was like right up on you in your space. And so if you had that ball out in front of you, I don't care how it's getting taken away from you. And if you look at like the amount of turnovers that Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving has compared to Magic Johnson or John Stockton, they didn't turn the ball over like that because their number one job was to protect the ball and facilitate the offense. Steph Curry, and even though you don't have to get up into his space, he still turned the ball over a lot. Kyrie Irving, they turned the ball over more than what John Stockton did back in the day. So every possession in the NBA game was important. So today's basketball, in my opinion, it just don't measure up to what the NBA did back in their golden era. So that's my take on it. Y'all make sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.